Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell is a book about how there are two basic ways to look at the world and political issues, how those differences manifest in different issues at different times and in different places. They are called the constrained vision and the unconstrained vision. The distinction between those two visions comes down to their belief around the capacity and limitations of man. The moral and mental capacities of humanity are seen very differently by those in the constrained and unconstrained traditions. They have their own distinct senses of the nature of humans. The constrained vision, as they see it, humans are tragically limited in their capacities. We have selfish and dangerous impulses that can be contained only by means of society's laws, institutions, and other strategies. In the constrained vision, an individual's own knowledge is grossly inadequate for social decision-making, and often even for his own personal decisions. The fundamental moral and social challenge was to make the best of the possibilities which exist within human nature. To create social change in the constrained vision, you rely on incentives rather than dispositions to get the job done. There is no such thing as solutions, only trade-offs. The unconstrained vision sees things very differently. For the unconstrained, human nature is perfectible, that man's understanding and disposition were capable of intentionally creating social benefit. The intention to benefit others as being the essence of virtue, that there are a limited group of people who can decide what society should look like and have the authority to make these changes to perfect society. Prudence, the careful weighing between trade-offs, which is considered the highest virtue in the constrained vision. By contrast, in the unconstrained vision, where moral improvements have no fixed limit, prudence is of the lower order of importance. Implicit in the unconstrained vision is the notion that the potential is very different from the actual, and that means exists to improve human nature towards its potential, or that man will do the right thing for the right reason, rather than for ulterior psychic or economic rewards. Great evils of the world, war, poverty, and crime, for example, are seen in completely different terms by those with the constrained and the unconstrained visions. If human options are not inherently constrained, then the presence of such repugnant and disastrous phenomena virtually cries out for explanation and for solutions. But if the limitations and passions of man himself are at the heart of these painful phenomena, then what requires explanations are the ways in which they have been avoided or minimized. While the believers in the unconstrained vision seek the special causes of war, poverty, and crime, believers in the constrained vision seek the special causes of peace, wealth, or a law-abiding society. In the unconstrained vision, there are no intractable reasons for social evils and therefore no reason why they cannot be solved with sufficient moral commitment. But in the constrained vision, whatever artifices or strategies restrain or ameliorate inherent human evils will themselves have costs, some in the form of other social ills created by these civilizing institutions, so that all that is possible is a prudent trade-off. Let's take an example from the book to see if this illuminates the differences. The two great revolutions in the 18th century, in France and America, can be viewed as applications of these differing visions, though with all the reservations necessary whenever the flesh and blood of complex historical events are compared to skeletal and theoretical models. The underlying premises of the French Revolution more clearly reflect the unconstrained vision of man which prevailed among its leaders. The intellectual foundations of the American Revolution were more mixed, including men like Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson, whose thinking was similar in the ways to that of France, but also included as a dominant influence of the Constitution, the classic constrained vision of man expressed in the Federalist Papers, where Robespierre looked forward to the end of the revolutionary bloodshed when all the people will have become equally devoted to their country and its laws. Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Papers regarded the idea of individual action, unbiased by considerations not connected with the public good, as a prospect more ardently to be wished than seriously to be expected. Robespierre sought a solution, Hamilton a trade-off. The Constitution of the United States, with its elaborate checks and balances, clearly reflect the view that no one was ever to be completely trusted with power. This was in sharp contrast to the French Revolution, which gave sweeping powers, including the power of life and death, to those who spoke in the name of the people, expressing the Rousseauian general will, even when bitterly disappointed with particular leaders, who were then disposed and executed. Believers in this vision did not substantially change their political systems or beliefs, viewing the evil as localized in individuals who had betrayed the revolution. The writers of the Federalist Papers were quite conscious of the vision of man which underlay the constitution of checks and balances which they espoused. It may be a reflection of human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? To the Federalists, the evil was inherent in man, and institutions were simply ways of trying to cope with it. Adam Smith likewise saw government as an imperfect remedy for the deficiencies of wisdom and virtue in man. The Federalist Papers said, "Why has government been instituted at all? Because the passions of men will not conform to the dictates of reason and justice without constraint." To those without this constrained vision of man, the whole elaborate system of constitutional checks and balances was a needless complication and impediment. Marquis de Condorcet condemned such counterweights for creating an overcomplicated political machine to weigh upon the people. He saw no need for society to be jostled between opposing powers or held back by the inertia of constitutional checks and balances. The constrained vision is a tragic vision of the human condition. The unconstrained vision is a moral vision of human intention, which are viewed as ultimately decisive. This is a great book like all of Thomas Sowell's books. This one is great for understanding where the other side is truly coming from, even if they don't express it in the same terms. The book goes through the arguments of equality, justice, and social justice, what they mean to both visions. The constrained vision looks to processes and systems, while the unconstrained looks to results. It is a must-read if you like politics at all. It will also make you turn off the news, as you will already know what they will say 98% of the time. This book does not go into at all which vision is correct, which I enjoy about the book. I do think that history shows the constrained vision has way better results than the unconstrained. I would try and pick this one up. I hope I did Thomas Sowell justice here, as he is truly an American icon.